The silence hits you first. Not normal quiet, but the kind that presses against your eardrums, like water at the bottom of a well. You step over the threshold of a town that once bustled with voices, hammers, and laughter. Now, only the wind moves through the empty streets. Doors hang open on rusted hinges. Windows stare like blind eyes. And every footprint you leave is the first there's been in decades. These aren't ruins of ancient empires. These are places where people lived, where they worked, raised families, and then nothing. You're listening to Ham Hock Horror, and these are 7 of the strangest ghost towns that were abandoned overnight. Under the cracked streets of Centralia, Pennsylvania, a coal seam has been burning since 1962, turning the ground itself into a furnace that belches poison steam from fissures in the earth. The fire started in a garbage dump blaze that spread into the abandoned mines, and no one has been able to put it out in over 60 years. The town was once home to over 1,000 souls, mostly tough miners and their families. But one by one, they packed up and left as the roads buckled and the air turned toxic. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was playing in his grandmother's backyard when the ground opened beneath him, and he dropped into a 150-foot sinkhole filled with carbon monoxide.
I seen smoke, and I thought I didn't want my grandmother, to go over near because she's elderly, and I was worried about her, so I went over to see if it was the mine fire, and when I did, I just fell right through.
His cousin grabbed his arm and pulled him out, just as the sides caved in. That close call was the final straw. The government bought out the last residents, and the zip code was officially discontinued in 2002. Drive Route 61 today, and you'll find an infamous, yet unofficial, tourist destination. A long stretch of abandoned road covered in spray-painted messages and pentagrams where the asphalt bubbles and steams like the devil's own skillet. People leave their cars behind to walk the cracks, feeling the heat through their shoes and reading warnings from visitors who came before them. At least it did. In 2020, during the pandemic, a council of Karens demanded the road be demolished, and it was later buried, putting an end to a legacy that many held dear. It's subtle, but at night, the town is lit by an eerie orange glow from vents in the earth. But far more noticeable is the dreadful scent of sulfur that hangs heavy in the air. Ghost hunters report disembodied voices calling from the empty houses and shadow figures standing in the windows of homes whose doors have been boarded up for decades. A firefighter who helped evacuate the last few families back in the 90s still swears he saw a miner in full gear walking out of a sealed mine entrance, carrying a lantern that wasn't there the day before. Centralia burns on, a modern gate to hell, hiding in plain sight under small-town America. The fire is expected to burn for another 250 years, keeping the ghosts warm while the living stay away. Craco sits upon a hill in southern Italy like a broken crown. Its medieval streets and churches sliding slowly down the slope, as if the earth itself is trying to shrug the town off its back. Founded in the 8th century by Greeks fleeing malaria and persecution, the village clung to its cliff for over 1,000 years, surviving plagues and earthquakes. That is, until 1963, when the ground began to move again and wouldn't stop. Landslides swallowed houses whole, roads cracked open like eggshells, and the people were forced by the earth itself to flee down the hill to New Craco, leaving the old town to the goats and the ghosts. The church still stands at the highest point, its bell tower leaning like a drunk. On windy nights, the bells still ring, though no rope has touched them in over 60 years. Shepherds who graze their flocks near the ruins tell tales of monks in brown robes carrying candles through streets that collapsed decades ago, their Latin chants drifting on the wind. In the 1980s, film crews started using Craco for movies about biblical times, since the town looks as if it's been abandoned since the crucifixion itself. Actors reported seeing a woman in black watching from windows that have no floors behind them. Some even swore they heard children laughing in empty schools. Urban explorers who sneak past the fences at night find fresh flowers on altars that no one has tended since 1963. Some report footprints in the dust that lead to walls and stop. The town is slowly sliding into the valley, feeding it, on average, one house per year. Craco waits on its crumbling hill, beautiful yet terrible, calling out to both photographers and thrill seekers alike with its skeletal beauty. If you're still with me, light the path forward with a like or comment. Only you can light the way. Kolmanskop rose from the Namib Desert sands in 1908 when a railway worker found a diamond glinting in the moonlight, and the German colony went mad with riches overnight. Within a few years, it had a hospital with Southern Africa's first X-ray machine, a ballroom, a bowling alley, and houses with German beer, shipped all the way from home. Money flowed like water, and so did the alcohol. The desert bloomed with extravagant parties and opera. All the while, workers crawled on their bellies in the burning sand, searching for stones that could buy empires. By the 1920s, the diamonds began to run out, and after World War II, the town emptied faster than it filled. The last family left in 1956, leaving behind grand homes with bathtubs full of sand and pianos that would lay unplayed. The desert moved in almost immediately. Dunes poured in through broken windows and swallowed streets whole, wrapping the once proud town within a golden casket. Explorers who visit now walk through houses where wallpaper peels like old skin and chandeliers hang over floors buried knee-high in sand. The bowling alley lanes are warped by heat and time. In the butcher shop, hooks still hang from the ceiling, swaying as if fresh meat just came in. The air still carries the faint scent of blood. No matter how long or strong the desert wind blows, Kolmanskop stands as a monument to how fast fortune can turn to dust. The desert has reclaimed almost everything now, with only the strongest walls still defying the dunes. Bodie boomed in the 1870s when gold fever turned a quiet California hillside into a lawless town of 10,000 souls with roughly 65 saloons and a reputation for wickedness that made preachers sweat. Gunfights spilled blood in the streets almost daily. Stagecoach holdups happened before breakfast. And bad men of Bodie became a phrase that meant the worst of the worst. By 1880, the mines started playing out, and the easy money dried up, leaving the gamblers and gunmen to drift away like smoke. The town froze in time after the last mill closed in 1942. Its wooden buildings left exactly as they were when the owners walked away. Dishes on tables, tools in shops, even bottles on bar shelves. Rangers who patrol the state park now report hearing piano music from the old saloons when no one is inside, and seeing lamplight flicker in windows that have been dark for over 80 years. A curse is said to follow anyone who takes even a nail from Bodie, with letters pouring in from thieves who suffered flat tires, broken bones, or worse, until they mailed the stolen item back. In the 1960s, a family on vacation pocketed a few rocks as souvenirs, and their car caught fire on the way home with no explanation. The rocks were later found melted into the seat once the flames died. The Park Service keeps a file of apology letters thick as a Bible, each one telling of misfortune that ended the moment the stolen piece was returned. Visitors who respect the rules still feel watched by unseen eyes, with footsteps echoing behind them on empty boardwalks and cold hands brushing their necks. In the old morgue, Bodie stands today as California's best-preserved ghost town. Its leaning buildings and rusted machinery, baking under the high desert sun. The curse keeps the town pure, punishing the greedy, the same way the gold rush punished the hopeful. And those who walk Main Street after sunset swear that there's more to the evening shadows than meets the eye. Hashima Island rises from the sea like a wrecked battleship. Its concrete apartments stacked 9 stories high, once housing over 5,000 miners who dug coal from the depths below. Formed in 1890, the island was once the most densely populated place on Earth, with workers and their families packed into tiny rooms, while typhoons battered the sea walls and waves crashed over the rooftops. The coal ran rich until the 1950s, when Japan switched to petroleum and the mine began to die. By 1974, the company shut the operation overnight, giving workers hours to pack and leave on the last boat, while the island's lights went dark forever. The apartments were left with clothes in closets, bicycles in hallways, televisions on tables, everything abandoned, leaving a haunting snapshot of that final day. Typhoons battered the concrete until it crumbled, and vines quickly got to work at prying the buildings apart. But the island's nickname, roughly translated to Battleship Island, fits more than ever, with its very silhouette looking ready to sink. Divers who explored the undersea mine shafts in the 90s reported seeing lights moving in tunnels that have been flooded for over 50 years. Urban explorers who reached the island illegally found shoes lined up outside classrooms and lunchboxes still on desks. One group claimed to set up cameras overnight and captured shadows moving between apartments, tall figures that vanished when the light hit them. The Japanese government opened limited tours in 2009, but after a single night, guides demanded that they be returned to the mainland each day before the sun sets. They recalled the wind carrying voices, speaking in an old dialect, and calling for mothers who died decades ago. Hashima Island waits off the coast like a concrete tombstone, marking the end of an entire way of life that vanished in a single day. The sea claims a little more each year, but the buildings stand defiant, their empty windows watching the horizon for boats that will never return. The Spanish sun beats down mercilessly on the broken stones of Belchite, a town that died screaming in 1937 during the Spanish Civil War. Francisco Franco ordered it be left exactly as the bombs and bullets were, a monument to his victory and a warning to anyone who would oppose him. The church roof is gone, the bell tower split open like a cracked skull, and every wall is left pocked with bullet holes that look as fresh as the day they were made. Walk the main street at noon, and the heat shimmers off the rubble so hard that you'd swear you can still see soldiers running between the buildings. It only gets worse at night. The temperature drops suddenly, and the wind moves through the remaining shell of the church, mimicking the sound of the now absent choir. Locals refuse to enter the old town after sunset. They say the dead are jealous of the living and will follow you home if you linger too long. A shepherd in 1964 went in looking for lost sheep and was found 3 days later. His hair now white as snow, eyes wide open, dead from pure terror. Tourists still come, drawn by the photographs, but many know to leave long before closing time. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain in minutes, and some visitors feel cold hands on the back of their necks, guiding them towards the deepest cellars. The Spanish government keeps the gates open in daylight, but the guards lock them at dusk, refusing to speak publicly about what their cameras pick up. After dark, Belchite stands exactly as death left it. A town frozen in its final agonized breath. The wind flowing through the bullet holes sounds almost like screaming, and some say it's the town itself trying to tell the story it was never allowed to finish. Pyramiden sits where the sun don't shine for 4 long months each year, a place where the polar night turns the world into an endless black void. The Soviets built the mining town in 1927, buying the land from Sweden and naming it after the pyramid-shaped mountain that towers above. By the 1950s, the town had amassed roughly 2,000 residents with a heated swimming pool, a theater, and of course, a giant statue of Lenin gazing over his subjects. The coal mines began to run thin in the 1980s, and reforms cut the subsidies that kept the town alive in such a brutal place. In 1988, Moscow ordered evacuation with only a couple days' notice. Workers left mid-meal, books lay open on tables, and pianos were abandoned. The last ship left in October of that year, and the town froze in time. The Norwegian Coast Guard patrols the island now and reports seeing lights in windows that have no power and hearing Russian folk songs drifting across the snow, even when knowing that no human has set foot there in months. The town is open for limited tours, but guides warn against wandering alone. Snowmobiles break down for no reason, and radios fill with static voices speaking too fast to understand. Many guests feel a hateful gaze, as if they're being watched by something that resents intruders setting foot on their precious Soviet soil. Pyramiden stands as the coldest ghost town yet to be discovered. A cursed ground where the air tastes of coal dust and forgotten dreams. The buildings lean under the weight of snow and time, but the spirit of the place refuses to die, waiting for the workers to be returned to its mines. You have just walked 7 towns that death claimed and never gave back. If these stories left frost on your soul, then do your part. Hit subscribe and the bell so the next video finds you before the dark does. This is Ham Hawk Horror, reminding you that the past is never really dead. It only waits for company.